welcoming all to today's session. So today's session is titled Fractured Orders, Fluid Loyalties, Power Politics in the Post-Alignment Age. We meet at a moment when long-standing global structures are under strain. New power configurations are emerging without clear rules, and states are navigating, shifting, and sometimes competing alignments. Power now moves not only through institutions, but also through markets, technology, and public sentiment. In this uncertain environment, diplomacy has become adaptive, agile, and often improvised. To help us unpack these dynamics, it is my pleasure to invite our distinguished panel of today's session. A.N.M. Muniruzzaman, President, Bangladesh Institute of Peace and Security Studies; Jovan Ratkovic, Senior Fellow, Agora Strategy Institute; Julia Roknifard, Senior Lecturer, Taylor's University, Malaysia; Leonardo Paznaev, a Senior Researcher, Getulio Vargas Foundation, Brazil; Marian Vidori, Research Associate, Cornell University, USA; and David Patrician, RTL Nord, Germany. Please, David Patrician, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes? Put your hands up if you can hear me. Okay, great. So, good morning, everyone. I just learned in the Bangladesh language, it's Shubho Shokal. Shubho Shokal, good to see everyone. My name is David Patrician. It is a great honor to be back today at the Bay of Bengal conversation, where our main theme, the entire few days, will be talking about rivals, ruptures, and realignments. I know some people are still making their way in. That's no problem. If you can, please find a seat so that we can begin our discussion with our distinguished panel this morning. Real quick, I wanted to set the stage after our opening ceremony. We are talking this morning about fractured orders, fluid loyalties, power politics, and the post-alignment age. Please come in. We have plenty of seats in the back. Please come in. In a world where the geopolitical fault lines of global power seem to be shifting beneath our feet, we find ourselves in the midst of a profound transformation in the dynamics of diplomacy, governance, and international relations. The old order, once defined by rigid hierarchies and clear allegiances, is fracturing under the weight of unpredictable changes. Formerly, stable institutions, which once provided the scaffolding for cooperation and peace, now feel fragile and uncertain. As these institutions age and lose their impact, questions of legitimacy and relevance loom larger than ever. This is the theme of our discussion with my distinguished panel. For our panel, Fractured Orders, Fluid Loyalties, Power Politics, and the Post-Alignment Age. Quickly, I would just like to introduce the 5 panelists. At the end, we can give them a round of applause, and you can just raise your hand so that we know everyone. Julia Roknifard, Taylor University in Malaysia, is there. Oh, thank you. Or we can applaud after every name, as you wish. Jovan Ratkovic, the Agora Strategy Institute. Jovan, based in Brussels, is there. Jovan, welcome. Leonardo Neves with the Getulio Vargas Foundation, based in Brazil. Leonardo, welcome. Leo. Marian Vidaurri from Cornell University in the United States, originally from Mexico. Welcome. Good to see you. And of course, a great honor, General Muniruzzaman from the Bangladesh Institute of Peace and Security Studies, the BIPSS. Welcome, General. So there's a lot going on around the world, but of course, since we are here in Bangladesh, I wanted to first start on a local area, and then slowly we'll work our way outside of Bangladesh in the SAARC region. General, the first question, the way we've decided it, I will ask a first question, and inside of that question, we will have our opening statements. So General, the first question I have for you, how does Bangladesh navigate its position between the major regional powers like India and China in an age of shifting alliances and uncertain global alignments? General, please. And to all of our guests, speak loudly and clearly, please. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. To answer your question, I need to go back to understand the international system and the global order. The global order and the international system is at a moment of transition. We are seeing transformative changes taking place in the international order. And some of the characteristics of that order are notable. First, I would like to say that there is a high degree of fluidity in the international order and the international system as it makes way to an emerging new international order. In that, the key actors are also changing their power plays. From a state of mediator stability, the international system is now moving to a state of open rivalry as we see major powers getting into open rivalry in all aspects of the relationship. Alliances are making way to new alignments and multi-alignments. States are no longer fixed in the alignment patterns. They choose their alliances based on their very narrow self-interest. So we are seeing a new regime of multi-alignments taking shape. Structures, as we are used to previously, is making way to more dynamic relationship and not fixed structures anymore. So the flux in the international system is giving way to much more newer alliances and realignments. We see a middle power complex when middle powers are now flexing their muscle in a manner that they have never exercised before. Therefore, we see a high degree of strategic hedging by many of the middle powers, and that strategic hedging is likely to continue. There is the emergence of a new and a dynamic and a powerful global south, in which Bangladesh also belongs, and the global south will emerge as a new pole in the international structure, in which we also acknowledge the role of many, many non-state actors coming to play. We are seeing the emergence of a new role of autocratic legalism, or in many cases, right-wing populism. We are seeing the restructuring of the transatlantic alliance based on which the international order was so far based, at least in the European theater. In the European theater, we also see conflicts emerging and re-emerging again. So the conflict in Ukraine and the conflict elsewhere beyond Europe in Gaza, the conflict in Sudan, the conflict in Myanmar is bringing about a kind of an international conflict fatigue that we are gradually getting accustomed to. There is great insecurity on the impacts of climate change in the international system. We are seeing the rise of techno-strategic competition that we had not seen before in the level and emergence that we are now getting accustomed to. So AI will shape many of our relationships, both as a state power, as a regional power. We are about to see a tilt towards the east from the west to which we have been accustomed to so far. And the international rule-based order on which the entire international system in the post-Second World War based is gradually making way to an era in which international norms will be rewritten by powers who have the power to rewrite those systems. So we are saying weakening of international norm-based order based on WTO, for example. We are seeing the weakening of various other UN organizations which no longer can play the role for which they were once created. And in that order, international multilateralism is also making way to multilateralism, in which groups like AUKUS, Quad will come to play a greater role. But a major factor of the changes in the international order is coming from the very powerful play of techno-oligarchies. Techno-oligarchies in the future will not only play a role in the technical sphere, but they will also challenge the authority of the state in many ways. So we are seeing the rise of technopower, and the technopower can shape international order in the coming years and decades. Coming back to your question, sir, Bangladesh navigates a very complex relationship with its regional powers and neighbors, in which Bangladesh exercises the right of self-interest and very direct, narrow self-interest. In all our relationship with these major regional powers, some of whom are also aspiring to be global powers today, we maintain a high degree of strategic autonomy, and the strategic autonomy must be maintained at any cost. We are a member of BRI. We also subscribe to the principles of Indo-Pacific strategy. So we are standing on both platforms in which we are both comfortable in our building our relationship with both powers. We don't subscribe to a narrow relationship with one single power. We will only navigate and go to interest-driven relationship in which Bangladesh has maintained a robust relationship with our immediate neighbor, India. We have strategic relationship with our other near neighbor, which is China. And we have very successfully maintained a healthy relationship with both, based on our self-interest, based on our national interest, and maintaining a high degree of strategic autonomy at all costs. That is the way Bangladesh will go ahead in future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
General, I have a quick follow-up, if you wish, please. I have a quick follow-up question. For many of us, this is the first time visiting Bangladesh. You all will have your elections next February. Some would say historic elections for Bangladesh. How is your personal feeling, specifically also with these global alignments and shifting alliances? Are you optimistic for these elections for Bangladesh coming up in February?
I am personally very optimistic, like most other Bangladeshis. This is also a moment of transition and transformation for Bangladesh. After 17 years of a very autocratic and dictatorial rule, Bangladesh is regaining its place again as a member of a democratic society and a country. We are getting back to democracy that we had lost under the Sheikh Hasina regime. And this was brought by nobody else but by the people of Bangladesh. So my hats off to the people of Bangladesh, the younger generation of Bangladesh, the Gen Z of Bangladesh, who fought to bring back democracy to Bangladesh. This is a historic moment for the nation. It is an opportunity for Bangladesh to get our history and course right again. And this is an opportunity that we cannot afford to miss. We are thankful to our friends internationally who are equally supportive of the process of democratic transition in Bangladesh. And I'm very, very hopeful that February will show us the path to a new democratic future and a bright future for Bangladesh.
Super. Thank you very much. Let me turn over now to my right, to Marian. Marian, I know you've been living in the United States for many, many years, originally from Mexico, so you certainly have a North American perspective on many things. In an era where power increasingly flows through markets, data, and emotion, how is the US adapting its foreign policy and diplomacy beyond traditional state-to-state relations? And I know in the US, things change almost every hour these days, or every few days. How's the situation?
Well, thank you, David. First, I would like to say how grateful I am to be here, sharing this stage with my friends, and to meet new friends. I feel that CGS is doing something very important, providing a space for us to connect. Connection is the antidote to those things. Rupture, rivalry. We need to come back to basics. We need to come back to humanness. And this is a wonderful space so that we can interact and talk about these issues. Regarding your question, how much has it adapted? A lot. In short, a lot. Of course, we're in a framework that has no name yet between what used to be a rules-based international order to what seems to be now a power-based international order. And It's not only the United States that's changing the way it conducts foreign policy, but also other major powers and other players. It is a world disorder in which we're in. And I would like to give like a specific example. We
Please.
can continue talking about generalities, but I can give you an example that comes to mind to answer your question. So in recent months, there has been escalation in the Caribbean Sea because of the situation of Venezuela. Venezuela has been in a state of crisis for decades now. It's an authoritarian regime that is meddled with transnational organized crime, the Cartel de los Soles, the cartels. So it is an area that there's profound structural problems and contemporary problems regarding illicit markets. So the United States has escalated its presence, its military presence in the Caribbean, and a lot of the critique has been on the United States and its actions in the Caribbean Sea.
Can we be specific here? Some of that is also shooting down some of these
Absolutely.
boats that we're
Yes,
not 100%
we don't know.
sure who or what, but supposedly have drug trafficking.
Yes,
Correct.
supposedly drug trafficking. And so it is definitely a new way of handling, addressing a problem that the region, Latin America and the Caribbean, haven't been able to tackle and address on their own. So it's also necessary to question the actions or lack of actions of other countries in the region and their foreign policies. And so yes, it is a time where there's this term called VUCA, and I try to search for it because it's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Supposedly VUCA, this is the VUCA world. And when I looked, I researched on where it comes from, this term, it's from the 1980s, so it's nothing new. It seems like some of the trends that we're seeing are repeating itself. Probably magnified by the fact that social media magnifies everything. And of course, it doesn't help that certain leaders have different leadership styles from great powers. So definitely we're in a moment, and especially in the Latin American Caribbean region, where tensions are high. There's talk about war, but also we mustn't forget that we have to figure out a way as a region and the states to address democratic breakdown when it does happen, because often the response is silence. And there was a mention, I think General mentioned mini multilateralism and the creation of blocs, multilateral blocs. And this year, there were several summits in the Americas where leaders of Latin America and the Caribbean got together. And for instance, BRICS was in Brazil. Also, well, the Summit of the Americas was canceled. But there have been others. And in those meetings, like the EU CELAC also in Colombia, there is no mention of the crisis in Venezuela. There is no mention of the crisis in Nicaragua or the situation in Cuba. So, you know, in conclusion, there are double standards in this international system. And we're in this period, in this limbo between what we knew and what's coming.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that we will figure it out, because we're in spaces like this where we can come together and think creatively. A professor of mine said this moment calls for an awakening of realistic creativity. And I love it, because old approaches cannot be used to tackle new challenges.
Very good. Let me ask one quick follow-up. Some would say the United States last year, it's very unpredictable as far as many of the negotiations, tariffs, and other things. I've read that some Central and South American countries are turning much more towards China, dealing with investments, dealing with trades. Have you also come across that a little bit more? The increase of the China-South America relations due to this realignment?
Yes, Chinese presence in the Americas is not a new pattern.
Yeah.
It has for many years. The first country who because there were several countries that recognized Taiwan and slowly started to change their foreign policy recognizing China. And it started before the Great Recession in 2008. Yeah. So it's been something that's gradually been strengthening. And of course, the countries, it's not that they have the option whether the US or China, it's both, because they're both the two global superpowers today.
Yeah. As we can see also, Taiwan is in the center of many issues, including currently China and Japan, what's going there as well, so something we certainly have to follow. Leo, let me turn it over to you. Leonardo, but you said Leo is also okay. Just a very direct question to you. What does post-alignment mean in today's world, and how can we tell that countries are shifting their alliances? Oh, can we do a microphone check for
microphone?
Leo? Testing 1, 2.
Hello, 1, 2, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, David, for the question. First of all, again, I'd like to thank the CGS for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you, all of you again here. It's amazing. Keep changing the idea, meeting together friends that we have met before, and get the perspective throughout the years. David, I think I would repeat, not only myself, but the previous speakers, if I start talking about the transition, I mean, the era of transition that we're living right now, how new rivalries, how new poles of power have been consolidating. I think that the biggest story of this time is not this transition, is not this chaotic realignment. The story of this moment, in my opinion, is US withdraw from the system. I think that's the biggest thing, because US did not falter, did not collapse it as Soviet Union did before. US deliberately decided to step down from it, and it's not step down from only global governance, from UNESCO, from the Health World Organization, well, the Paris Accords. It's also stepping down from the alliances that it used to do. I mean, NATO is one example. How it's forcing Japan, South Korea to invest more in defense, or else. Is how it's pushing other countries with these new trade deals, or else. So the way that US have been forsaking one of its biggest assets, its alliance, it's very interesting. And this scenario made, for most of the countries, including mine, Brazil, hedging is the name of the game now. All the countries, I mean Brazil and all of the countries, we have to hedge against the different poles of power at this moment. For 10, 15 years, I have been listening. Whenever I receive some colleagues from the Western countries, Europe, US, Canada, even Australia, they do not understand the role and the participation of Brazil within the BRICS. Well, since then, they believe that BRICS somehow is a new Chinese alliance, is an anti-Western alliance or something like that. It could be for the Chinese, it could be for the Russians, but it's not for the Brazilians, for the Indians, and for the South Africans, and perhaps none of the new members. For Brazil, it's an interesting, different platform that we can connect with countries that some of them are rising now as emerging countries, and we can meet in a yearly basis. We can discuss our issues. We can discuss not only global economics, not only global politics, but some daily issues, for instance, how to tackle tropical diseases, for instance. So the BRICS is a very interesting partnership for us. And this very year, it's become clear that this hedging strategy, the BRICS is not only a practical platform, but also it's part of this hedging strategy that Brazil is doing. Because when Brazil was in the Liberation Day in April 2nd, 4th, something like that, beginning of April, when President Trump made this statement of the Liberation Day and slapped tariffs all across the world, Brazil was okay. It was within the group of 10%. But a few months after, in July, President Trump decided to place more 40% tariffs on Brazil across the board. And that's because Brazil was prosecuting former President Bolsonaro for his coup attempt. Imagine if US decided to put an extra 40% of tariffs in Bangladesh because of the trial of Sheikh Hasina. It's something like that for us. So the problem is, how can we deal with US in this sense? And we were to be a strategic partner of them. I mean, not strategic in the sense of defense, but culturally, economically, educationally, everything historically, we were very close to US in many different ways.
Yep.
So, what the first thing that Brazil did when we received this new 40% of tariffs? We called China, we called South Africa, we called India, and other countries like Turkey, and they began to help us. They began to buy a little bit more from Brazil. We can display some of the trades that we had with US. China had accredited 100-something coffee producers to move away some of this production. So it was interesting because this hedging strategy worked for Brazil in that time against US. Luckily enough, we managed to discuss with US, put forward a negotiation. We changed to a positive agenda, and now we have been, yesterday or the day before yesterday, I'm jet-lagged, so this week, President Trump took off the 40% tariffs in most of the issues. So we are going back to, slowly, but we are going back to the pre-Liberation Day tariffs. So I think hedging in the sense of these post-alignments, it's vital for countries, especially small and middle countries, emerging countries, because it's different. It's not like the Cold War and you have two very solid alliances. It's more fluid, it's more fractured, so we need to hedge with other different countries.
Very good. Real quickly, I do have one follow-up question. Just want to make sure, in the back, can everyone hear us okay? Put your hands up, can you hear us okay? I only see a few hands, if we can make it. And the drone is nice, but I feel sometimes like the helicopter's flying over us. Maybe if that can take a break for one moment, that'd be wonderful. Okay, great. Leo, I have to ask, the COP30 is going on in Brazil right now. We've had many COPs around the world. Some people, of course, it's always good to get together and talk, no question there. Some people are skeptical as the results. Anything that you're hearing back from the Brazilian side about what's going on with the COP30? Are people optimistic that we'll finally make some changes with the climate change?
Well, I think we can be as positive as we can. We think we have to have both feet on the ground. We'll not change overnight anything. But we are a little bit positive in the sense that we managed to create the working agenda, which in general takes like 3-4 days of the COP to negotiate. We managed to do that in the first day, so that's a positive thing. Brazil has managed to establish an idea of the tropical fund, a new fund to invest in tropical forests. Interesting enough, we managed to get the money. I mean, most of the countries are, I think, about 80 countries, now 80 countries pledged some kind of money. Germany, I think, was the last one with 1 billion euros. Norway, I think, 3 billion euros, something like that. So these funds will go on. I mean, we needed 25 billion to launch the fund, so it seems that it's on track to be launched.
Okay.
And right now, Brazil is presenting a roadmap to decarbonize the energy matrix. I mean, to move away from the fossil fuels. That's the big issue. That's the biggest story of the day in the COP right now, if you manage to do that or not. Of course, Saudi Arabia is in one side pushing against it. Colombia is on another side push forward. Oddly enough, European Union is going against this roadmap. Let's see how European Union goes to position itself until the end of the COP. But I think that's the roadmap from moving away from fossil fuels is probably the biggest idea, the biggest story of the COP.
Yeah, many people have said by the COPs, it is a lot of negotiating and a lot of pushing and a lot of pulling. So I've heard that before as well. Thank you. Jovan, I want to turn to you real quick. Jovan, without clear rules or frameworks, what ethical responsibilities do powerful states and corporations have in shaping the emerging global order? And I'll add one to that. Is ethics in politics important in 2020-25 when we look around the world? Jovan.
Well, we can see that, unfortunately, powerful states very often do not fulfill the ethical expectations that most of us would have.
Yeah.
But let us talk about ideal world and what we should expect of powerful states and powerful non-state actors, like global corporations, major companies, because we should also keep them up to those very, very high ethical standards also. And first of all, I mean, we should expect that they would protect the rule-based global order, but at the same time also support reform of multilateral institutions. For small countries like Bangladesh, Bangladesh of course is not small population-wise. It is among the top biggest countries in the world when it comes to population, but when it comes to territory, it is, well, just about top 100 in the world. So when it comes to countries like Bangladesh, rules-based order is vital. Small countries cannot survive in the world that is not based on rules, but on power. And this is why it is very, very important to protect that order. At the same time, we do have multilateral institutions that are, due to be reformed for a long, long time. But of course, it is not happening officially with UN system. It is not happening officially with so-called Bretton Woods financial institutions like World Bank and IMF. But this is happening unofficially. It is happening with the rise of Global South. Bangladesh, of course, being very active in South-to-South cooperation, and I guess it's going to be even more active in the future. It is happening through the rise of G20. G20 today is the most important global platform on our planet.
More than United Nations?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And it is happening today, actually, in South Africa, you know. So today, if you are not member of G20, if you are not member of BRICS, then of course you have to find strategic alliances. You have to have very active diplomacy to have your voice being heard, you know. Luckily for Bangladesh, of course, climate change being very important for this country, COP is still very much alive. The question is how effective it is, whether it's too slow, but you know, things are moving and you know, those events are happening. So this is already a positive sign. But you know, powerful states should be definitely pushing more for this reform of multilateral institutions, because of course today we live in a multilateral world, definitely. You know, in the past we had that during the Cold War. We had, you know, on one side Soviet Union, United States on the other side, and then non-aligned movements. Now, in a way, Global South is the new form of non-aligned movement. It doesn't have its institutions, it doesn't have its precise structure, but this is precisely, you know, in a way, fighting to have the voice of those countries and of those regions being heard. Apart from those issues, when it comes to peace and security, of course, powerful countries that have the biggest military capabilities are, of course, the ones that we should expect to maintain international peace and security. You know, through peacekeeping missions, through disarmament, through not inducing any sort of new conflicts, through trying to focus first on diplomacy and diplomatic solutions of the conflicts rather than military ones. And then when it comes to economy and huge global inequality that we have, of course the role of powerful countries is to try to, you know, make that inequalities less and less, you know, to support less developed countries through development aid, through humanitarian aid, through you know, modern technologies, debt relief, and so on and so on. Thank you.
Jovan, can I ask you a quick question regarding the United Nations? The organization's been there for over 70 years, but many people say it's outdated, it's not really relevant. Do you feel it's, I mean, maybe it's an obvious question, but what kind of change do we have to do to make an organization like the United Nations or a new one relevant in this shifting paradigm?
Well, you know, I mean, United Nations, of course, is a big system, so it would be completely unfair, you know, to paint it with one brush, you know. There are some agencies that are doing amazingly important job around the world, very successful one, But most of people are looking into UN Security Council and UN General Assembly when they're referring to whether United Nations system is efficient or not. And I think I gave the answer. I mean, because that system is largely outdated, now G20 is becoming platform for many issues to be discussed there, because several emerging global powers attempted for past almost 20 years to reform UN Security Council. We had alliances in the past of countries like India, Germany, Japan, Italy, trying to, get into that new, larger UN Security Council, but it did not work, unfortunately.
Okay.
And regarding financial institutions, I think the G20 is going to continue playing a very important role in trying to make World Bank and IMF much more up-to-date with change of governance structure, first of all, and I think it's very, very important thing also.
Super, thank you very much. I'll get to one question in a moment. Just to let our audience know, in a few minutes, we'll also be opening up the floor for your questions. So if you have some questions, feel free to write them down or keep them, and you'll have a chance to ask our panel here. Yulia, I wanted to get to you, of course. Yulia, what's causing the breakdown of old global hierarchies, and are we witnessing a temporary shift or the emergence of a completely new world order?
1, 2, 3 test. Can you
Hold
hear
on,
me?
microphone for Yulia. We can test 1, 2, 3. Can you speak, Yulia?
1, 2, 3 test.
If
Can you hear me?
nice and loud, please.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. First of all, I would like to echo my colleagues here and thank the organizers of the Bay of Bengal conference for their kind invitation. I think it's highly important for us to have such conversations and in the localities where it's very safe to, let's say, agree to disagree, to express ourselves, because as we know, it's in some places it wouldn't be possible to have conversations which are highly critical of certain things. So thank you for that. To the question, I think we've been for quite some time observing this in the making, this kind of breakdown that we are discussing. It's just, we always talk about it, we just don't know what are the new contours or contours of the new world order that are going to emerge. We know there is some breakdown occurring already. I would tie it to a few pillars where the breakdown is happening, and probably these are the most important ones. This would be military or security, economic, and ethical or moral components. So I see military and or security pillar and economic pillar are kind of interlinked. And if I may refer to the most recent events, I think it was vividly demonstrated in the course of the past 3 years since the start of the Russia war in Ukraine from February 2022, and later on also the beginning of the Israeli offensive in Gaza. Starting with the war on Ukraine from 2022 and over the 3 years so far, we've observed the kind of imbalances that exist in the world in terms of industrialization, industrial base, and deindustrialization that took place in certain places. So it hindered the possibility of pushing back against Russia's offensive and raised questions about the over-financialization of economies and, if you like, AIization, like how one of the US military commanders recently put it, you cannot AI the artificial intelligence, that's what I mean by AI, you cannot AI your way through a grinding war of attrition. You actually need AK-47. And the practice now shows that you need drones, which are kind of I'm not a military expert myself, but the military experts predict they are becoming a kind of a new Kalashnikov rifle in the modern warfare. And indeed, you've seen people for the past 3 years comparing the numbers. And if you are doubting that if that is the case, and there is this imbalance in terms of industrialization, deindustrialization, maybe we should ask ourselves a question, why for 3 years combined efforts of Europe and the United States and the allies were not able to push back against Russia's invasion to Ukraine, why we were not able to put a stop to it. So that's one, or rather two pillars that I'm looking at. And the third one, which to me is probably even the most important, the ethical or the moral pillar. Jovan just talked about the rules-based order. So indeed, we also had, no matter how much we talk about realpolitik, we had ethical, moral premises on which the most recent order, the one that we're seeing breaking down right before our eyes, was premised. And I think also these two conflicts in particular, some other ones we can also bring up, for example, how in different localities people treated Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, but let's stick with these two, Ukraine and Gaza, Palestine. I think it demonstrated quite clearly how the proverbial double standards are in action, how those norms work for some, but in other cases they do not work, how divided, how fractured the world is, not talking just about the political elites, but political elites in particular, because people at the public level probably demonstrated more unity than the political elites across the globe. And there is indeed a question, those who treat one conflict and people suffering in one conflict in the way that is premised on those ethical and moral standards, but in the other conflict, people are treated in reverse. How can we expect those to preach to the rest of the world, the global south in this particular case, about the norms, the ethos? Well, they are followed in one case and they are not followed, they are disregarded in the other. I would also like to talk about that I think there is a kind of a conflict of visions that is taking place if we should see politics, after all, the global politics in realist terms or in liberalist. And there is a conflict between people with different visions. So that's where I think we have a convergence of liberalism and realism, realpolitik and the constructivism. So it really depends on how you see the world, what your perspective is, and what vision is going to eventually win. And recently, we've unfortunately witnessed, and I'm not a disciple of John Bensheimer, but you probably might hear just the same things that I'm almost repeating. Unfortunately, realism has been winning in the sense that global powers see global politics in terms of material, military power, even if they are willing to masquerade their actions by this ethical, moral norms, or they are just not having a clear direction in how it is being pictured, so just sticking to the old patterns of how it used to be done. But I think in many parts of the world, which unfortunately we don't have much time to bring up many examples, what has been happening is indeed the concern about material, military power, and of course the competition for resources. And even the most recent coming from our region, Thailand, Cambodia conflict, why it got ignited in the first place, why it got reignited recently. I think there are many questions that could be asked about this. And of course in this situation we have those who are ready to fill the void. For many people, for many nations in the region where I'm coming from, Southeast Asia or ASEAN, China is the most important #1 trading partner, no matter how other countries like the EU as a whole or the United States, how many investments they bring to the region. And indeed, the ASEAN leaders, for example, are still ready to dance with President Trump upon his arrival. But the major trading partner for us, and for Bangladesh as well, I'm sure, is China. Which at this point, and I'm not advocating for Pax Sinica as an alternative, I'm sure if it were to happen, it's not going to be a pretty one as well, and we will be highly critical of it if we are planning to replace Pax Americana with a Pax Sinica. But at this point, and probably that's how global orders start, China offers this kind of value-free, prosperity for all kind of cooperation without much interference into the domestic affairs. And that is, I think you'd agree with me, it's what looks attractive too many, and that's why smaller countries, as it was brought up earlier, resort to hedging. In ASEAN, we are all about hedging, and sometimes it's highly criticized, but what choice do we have? So no matter the appearances of even dancing with President Trump with wonderful music, but I think what this all is about hedging, and all of us in Southeast Asia, we are hedging between the United States and China, and that's just inevitable.
Super, thank you very much. I have 2 or 3 short questions. This is open to everyone. We can have maybe a short discussion about it. The first one is this: what role do populism and nationalism play in the weakening of international institutions? Are they causes or symptoms of the current global fractures? Anyone, please. I think Julia wants to talk about that.
Me?
Yeah. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, could you please?
No question.
Just once
So,
again.
what role do populism and nationalism play in the weakening of international institutions? Are they causes or symptoms of the current global fractures?
Well, I'll probably start, and I know a few colleagues wanted to chip in as well. I've noticed...
And due to time, this round we have to do the answers just a little bit shorter, just to let everyone know. Okay,
yeah,
please.
I am not going to give a speech, I'll try. On my side, something that probably colleagues are not going to bring up, I've noticed that in terms of populism, we've observed this interesting development when leaders who came up to the stage nationally and then globally, first as populist leaders, nationally in the first place. They came as populist leaders, presenting themselves as close to the people, providing for the direct contact to the authority through themselves. They acquired enough wealth, enough networks, enough clientele within their own states, so they couldn't claim that they are populist, they couldn't present themselves as populist leaders nationally. So what did they do? They moved to the global arena. They moved the populism, they shifted the populism to the global arena as well, presenting themselves at this time to the global public as standing for international interest, for the interest of the oppressed. Why Vladimir Putin was so successful in presenting himself to the global south, to the Asian nations, especially post-colonial nations? Because many said that, oh, he's standing for us, he's going to get back at them for everything that was done with us, for everything that was done to us in the past. So that's one of the trends that I find quite amusing in the global politics, and I think we can see values of what people put as a priority for themselves to be fulfilled. They also have been shifting with that trend. Thank you.
Super. Anyone, General, please.
I think, in my understanding, populism is coming back in many ways in many parts of the world based on very narrow nationalism. In some cases, globalism has failed some parts of the population of a country for which there is a backlash, and we see the rise of right-wing populism. We also see, even in our part of the world, a rise of religious populism. So therefore, every country is designing its own brand of populism. We see one kind of populism in the United States. We see another kind of populism in our neighboring country, India. So populism will determine many of our local politics for the coming years unless we are able to redefine the liberal democracies that we are aspiring to have or have been accustomed to in many parts of Europe. And those redefinition has to be reworked by a new social contract between the government and the people.
Yes. Marion, you wanted to add?
Thank you.
Yeah, you can test 1, 2. See?
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Can we make sure Marion's microphone is a little bit louder? Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. No.
No? Speak a little bit louder.
Okay, louder.
Now it's working.
No,
Now it's good.
the question of populism is such an important question. In Latin America and the Caribbean, basically, it's been around for a very long time, and it stayed. It has stayed. 1930s. And this is the point, 1930s. Why? Because after the market crash, 1929, the rise of classical populism, populists like Vargas in Brazil, Cárdenas in Mexico, Perón in Argentina, they were so popular because people were in need. And this reflects something that is still valid today. Populism exists because people's problems, daily problems, are not solved by institutions, democratic institutions, because democracy takes time.
Yeah. It's a quick fix to fill the void, you're saying.
Yes, and the case of El Salvador, for instance, a country that 15 years ago was one of the most violent countries in the world outside of war zones, and now it's one of the safest. Why? Because a populist president built a mega cárcel, a prison that's the biggest prison in the Americas, well, in Latin America. I don't know if the United States, in Latin America. And problem solved. But guess what? To the detriment, at what cost? Rule of law, democratic institutions. He concentrates power. There's no horizontal accountability. There is no separation and independence of power. So are you willing to pay the price of democracy, freedom, your right to have quick fixes? So it's a
heavy price.
Profound question, and yes, it's the causes, it's the symptoms, but for Latin America, it's not a new trend. It's a persistent reality, because it's the most unequal region in the world.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I saw, Leo, you were shaking your head, or Jovan, you wanted to add anything there? Or everything? It's good? Yeah? Okay. Good. I have one final, well, actually I have two final questions before we go to the Q&A. The first one, just a general one. How can countries stay true to their values when alliances and power are constantly shifting? It's a general question to anyone on the panel. Again, I'll repeat. How can countries stay true to their values when alliances and power are constantly shifting? Is it possible?
I think it is possible.
Yes?
As long as you very narrowly concentrate on your national interest. Countries no longer go to open alliances anymore. They go to alliances based on their narrow self-interest and national interest. So they choose and pick and choose which alliances serve them best. And this is also not a fixed process. This is a dynamic process where you can go to an alliance, pull out, and go to another one based on your narrow self-interest. And that's the way of the game now.
They told me that I'm allowed to ask some provocative questions. So, General, I'd like to ask you a provocative question. Yesterday evening, you were not there. I spoke with some Bangladeshi gentlemen, and we were talking about the situation with Sheikh Hasina and India. And since we're talking about the shifting geopolitical strategies here, what would it mean, in your opinion, if India does not return Sheikh Hasina here in Bangladesh to have her due trial and process?
If India respects international norms and rules and international order, then as a friendly neighbor, India should respect Bangladesh's legal system. Sheikh Hasina's trial has gone through all international standard legal system under which she was convicted. And that's a legal system that should be respected by all our neighbors. And if that respect is there, then by all account, she should be returned to Bangladesh. Besides that, we also have an extradition treaty. Under that extradition treaty, India is almost legally bound to send her back. Imagine if Bangladesh was housing a number of Indian dissidents and we did not return them back to India after a request that was made by New Delhi to Dhaka. What would be India's reaction? If that is the case, then anybody convicted under Bangladeshi law by international standards, India is legally bound to send him or her back to Bangladesh. And by all those accounts, we demand that New Delhi sends back Hasina back to Bangladesh.
Okay, thank you very much, General. Yeah, rule of law, mutual respect, I think important in personal relations as well as our geopolitical relations. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ladies. Now, I'd like to open up the floor to questions. We started about 10, 12 minutes later, so I hope Bangladeshi time, I can go also 10 minutes later also. I see some hands. I believe we have microphones here I just see here on the left-hand side. If somebody, you can please go ahead to the microphone. And I would ask you just to make your questions as brief as possible. And one thing, it's a very large room. And as I said, sometimes we have a drone, not a military drone, but a camera drone above us. And that's very loud. So please try to speak as loud and clearly as you can. We look forward to your questions. And if you could just make sure the microphone is working, if you can tap. Yes, please. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for this panel and the conversation. My name is Nishan Dimel. I'm from Verite Research, a think tank in Sri Lanka. Henry Kissinger said America had no permanent friends or enemies, only interests. And I hear this echoed in India, I hear it echoed in this panel. And I want to question all the panelists that this is perhaps a very bad idea. First, because self-interest is common, and the entire purpose of any relationship is to get beyond self-interest, to trust, to stability. And the moment self-interest is put forward, even questions like respecting international rule of law or being bound by any ethical consideration is destabilized, because what is ethics if it is not the ability to restrain ourselves against our self-interest? But secondly, because Julia made the distinction between Mersheimer's real politics and liberal views, if you saw, Julia, the conversation Jeffrey Sachs had with Mersheimer on this, as an economist, that is myself, the prisoner's dilemma is a classic example of how self-interest undermines mutual interest. And maintaining the capacity for long-term mutual interest is exactly where creating devices to overcome self-interest or park self-interest and work on trust really matters. So maybe if the other panelists also could reflect on this question.
So due to time, can I ask you just
I'm finished. I'm just
no,
saying,
it's okay, but summarize the question, just so we have one.
The question is, what is would you have an alternative to making self-interest the primary consideration of foreign policy? If not, isn't that the problem?
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone, please, Leo.
Yes, I think, I'm sorry for what's your name, but to the gentleman. I think that perhaps yes, self-interest is perhaps the leading power, driving power of foreign policy for ages now. But I think we enter in an era that perhaps we can reframe self-interest in a common interest. I think most of the countries, perhaps every country, would like to live in a stable world. So stability is to be the interest of every country. It's also collective interest. So how can we pursue stability in a way that can benefit ourselves, but everybody else? Climate change, regulation of migration. I mean, there is a lot of issues here that touch upon many different subjects in the things and that we discuss here, we discuss in the future, that it is within the self-interest of each country to deal with. But if dealt in a certain manner, you can see that it can also be in a common interest to tackle them. So trying to reframe our self-interest in a common interest, I think is one of the paths that we can achieve better relations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah, please, absolutely, General, please.
My answer to your question, sir, is that self will always dominate in the bilateral or multilateral relations among states. In the world of realpolitik, self will dominate, particularly as we redraw the international order. Every nation will work out its self-interest. But in the interest of the game, those nations may also accommodate other mutual interests to work out a bilateral atmosphere for cooperation. But self or self-interest will always dominate.
Thank you. Anyone else on that? Yeah, Marian?
One tiny comment.
Please, go ahead. Yeah, with the drone it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Loud if you can.
And of course, you're assuming that self-interest of a state is maybe equal or not equal to self-interest of the government or official party in government. Because there are some countries where actually the self-interest is more self-serving for the political elites that are in power. So there's, you have to, I guess, take it case by case. And there's also the point where, yes, every country, in theory, wants to put themselves first, but the question is, it was said America first, or Mexico also puts Mexico first, but it's not Mexico only, it should be global community. But just...
Yep, very good, thank you very much.
Okay.
Our next question, please.
My name is Saror Hussain. I am a practicing lawyer in the Supreme Court of Bangladesh and Lincoln's barrister. Formerly, I served with Bangladesh Army, retired voluntarily. My question to General Munir, a issue of election in February came up. Do you think with this weakened and fragile law and order situation and practically a imbalanced political environment, a free, fair, credible and participatory election is possible in February. Thank you.
Okay, that's a very domestic question, but General, if you'd like to give a brief answer to that.
I think it is possible.
1 second, your microphone. Can we make sure the General's microphone is working? Go ahead, sir, please.
I think. Can you hear me?
Yes, now it's on.
Okay. I think it is very much possible. We are in the post-revolution period. If you scan the post-revolution countries in the world, we are in a much better state than most. A post-revolution period for any country is not an idealistic situation. We have to make the best of what is the best situation we have. We know there is a weakening law and order situation. We know the police is in the process of being reconstituted again, but the military is going to jump in with 100,000 troops on the ground during elections. So the gap and the vacuum that exists in the law and order spread of the country can, to a great extent, will be filled up by the military. We have a population which is aspiring for return to democracy. So they have their own contribution to make to keep a stable order during the election. And last of all, we have no other alternative but to return back to democracy and give the power back to the people. That is the only path to survival.
Thank you. Jovan, you wanted to add?
I would just like to add that many countries are looking with inspiration with what has happened during democratic uprising and revolution in Bangladesh and this phase of democratic transition. We are all hoping that elections in February are going to be free and fair. We are, of course, very pleased that Bangladesh people are going to choose their own government, and they decided to restore democracy in this country by themselves without any pressure or any interference from anybody outside of this country, and this should remain so. Of course, it is important to see whether Bangladesh is going to elect the government that would keep a secular nature of this country and of this political system. It is also very important to see if some of the political parties that have already been in power in this country in the past come back to the power, whether they drew lessons from their previous terms in the government and whether they would completely restore democracy in this country that we all vouch for and hope for. Thank you.
Just one sentence. I have great faith in the people of Bangladesh. Just remember, look back that immediately after the revolution from 5th of August to the 8th of August, this country ran without a government, not only without a police force, it completely ran without a government, and it ran perfectly well, and we survived. So I have great faith in the people of Bangladesh that we will make the right transition to democracy.
Very good. Hope and optimism are always important. Due to time, we have 2 more questions, so no one else has to come up.
Yes,
Sir?
this one question.
Yes, please.
This is Tanvir Mohammad Dipu. I am a little geopolitical analyst and also a small business leader of Bangladesh, the member of highest apex body BCCI. I asked a question to Julia. She is the expert of security, Middle East and ASEAN. Now the right now, the main problem of the world, immigration and energy and power. So I think US has a strategic plan, also Western countries, to control the Middle East next 100 years or 150 years. So Israel is now the main problem of Middle East. He is growing technology, business, every sector. He has the power. But Muslims have no technology. They have 4 wives and 72 hurs. So how can Muslims can survive in Middle East to against Israel? Thank you.
Could you repeat the question? Just specifically. To Julia specifically? And
Yes, Julia, yes.
The question was, how can
survive, or how can Muslims can be the main focus in the Middle East without USA or Israel?
Oh.
Thank you.
That is a question that may take years to answer, if not months. Julia, if you'd like to give it a shot, just in general, it's a very difficult one.
Yeah, one, two, three.
Yeah.
Is the mic working?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very loaded question and also puts Julia in the spotlight. Indeed, it would take years to answer. And of course, I don't have an answer to that. I think back in Malaysia, we actually have a lot of discussions on what Ummah should do about it. But I think it's a very divisive approach. And actually, the change in discourse around Palestine, around Israel, started to occur when people who are non-Muslims started to participate in it. And to see it not in terms of religious fault lines, but in terms of humanity, that we should care for the rules of war, Geneva Conventions, for people who live there despite their skin color, regardless of their skin color, regardless of their religion. So I wouldn't say it's, if we even start answering this question from the point what Muslims should do, that's already going to get a wrong answer. So I think you should be thinking about what your societies should do, what you could do at the level of the communities, because I'm telling you, we've been practicing this approach for a long time, and it resulted only in this long, fruitless discussions about what Ummah can do to uplift itself.
Thank you very much. Please. I apologize. For the first time, I'm seeing the microphone in the back. Have you been standing there for a while, ma'am? I am so sorry. With the camera lights, I didn't see you. The young woman there, and then the gentleman here, please. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rifti Al-Zabed, a fourth-year student in Dhaka University. So I have a very specific question to Muniruzzaman sir. So what security challenges arise from Bangladesh-China cooperation in the northern region of Bangladesh, such as the Tista project? As you know, India has raised concern and also developing military infrastructure closer to that region. So my question is to Muniruzzaman sir.
Thank you. That region of Bangladesh is very sensitive in the nature of the security interest of both India and China because of the Siliguri corridor or chicken snake. Our project in Tista is in our national interest, and it has tremendous impact on our water security. That part of the country is going dry and is going through a process of desertification in the dry season. We have to explain our position better to our neighbors, and we have to have an open plan where everybody can come and participate in our national development. It is not a closed deal with one single country against another. And that is the way it was proposed to both China and India. Anybody who likes to come in and contribute in our process of water security in that part of Bangladesh is welcome to contribute. And if we are able to explain our transparent position better to both countries, I'm sure there should be no tension amongst them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you've had your hand up for a time, but you'll have to go to the microphone, so you have to go behind him. And that will be the last question of the young gentleman, and then, sir, here, you can just go to the microphone. 2 more questions. Unfortunately, we're out of time then. Gentlemen, sir, please.
Hello, my name is Atikur Rahman. I'm also from the University of Dhaka, just graduated. So I majored in public administration, but I have always been interested in global politics. So ever since I started studying about that, it always caught my attention that everyone says there is a rule-based order which is shifting towards a multipolar world. But did actually ever a rules-based order exist? I mean, we talk of it from the outset of the Second World War and the realignment of new global order. But did it actually apply to everyone equally? I mean, we can see through the Cold War, the major 2 powers did as they like. There was no order for them.
So your question is, was there ever an equal rules-based order?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. And if it's a culmination of that lawless society right now, or it's just a shift from rules-based to a new order, or it's just a culmination of the lawlessness of order?
Okay, no, thank you very much for the question. Would anyone like to take a shot at that here?
I don't think we, Jovan, okay. I don't think we live in a lawless era or something. I mean, I don't think we're going to shift in that direction either. Somehow, Jovan already said something before when he talked about UN. It's not like we have some problems in some segments that's nothing working out. I mean, if you look at the UN, I think that's the major illustration that we can do. I mean, UNICEF is doing a great job, FAO, UNHCR. So we have many different regulations from simple things like airports or how you organize airports and shipping lanes to, I don't know, I mean, to World Health Organization, how you organize the shipments of vaccines to conflict-driven countries. So I think that there's a lot of rules that are still there, that's still working. Some rules, we have problems. Trade, for instance, is something that we have to cope with the WTO. I think somehow some of the rules are still working, and that's why, for instance, Brazil has taken its demands to the WTO, complaining about US. It's true that the WTO now is very weakened, it's true, but we can perhaps refurbish in the future. It's not that we are in a lawless era, we are not in the peak that we were before in the late 90s, early 2000s. We are in a reflux, but I don't think that everything has ended. It's not in the apocalypse world, not yet at least.
Thank you. General, please. And we are short on time, so I ask, please, very short.
My answer to your question is that the rule-based order was never a fair rule-based order. And that is a way of conducting international relations globally. The people who are able to frame the rules, it will always go to their favor. But the biggest question is, it maintained order. The rules were the structures under which the international order was regulated and governed. And that rule-based order is changing. It's changing not because of other things, also because the people who created the rules are no longer interested in those rules. So they're giving away to other countries to fill up the vacuum. So we now have China coming into the play with their initiatives like GDI, GSI, GCI. So they're coming up to fill up the vacuum with their understanding of an international system with China-centric. So rule-based order will always be favorable to the ones who make the rules, and that is how international system plays. We have to have some sort of rules, otherwise it will be the rule of the jungle.
Thank you. We have run out of time, but the gentleman, the last question, it has to be very short. I apologize. The answer has to be very short. Please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Isharab Hussain, based in Kuala Lumpur with a think tank for last 15 years. Currently, I am based in Dhaka with a think tank Foundation for Strategic and Development Studies. First, I would like to welcome to my good friend, Dr. Julia, and also former Minister of Malaysia, Dr. Her Excellency Dr. Juraida. I know very well them. My question about the Rohingya crisis.
Nice and loud, please. Nice and loud.
Yes. Which? I would like to draw attention, firstly, General Muniruzzaman, secondly, Dr. Julia, the expert on the Asian affairs. The many experts opine there is a serious, dangerous security crisis lies within the Rohingya crisis, not for Bangladesh and Myanmar, it also for ASEAN and greaterly for SAARC region, particularly South Asian region.
So due to time, the question?
Please.
Yes.
Do you think such kind of security risks can destabilize the whole regions or whole global world? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Please.
My answer to your question, Dr. Sharaf, is that the Rohingya crisis has graduated from humanitarian crisis to a security crisis. It is already happening. It is putting tremendous pressure on Bangladesh's internal security, for example. It has tremendous potential to turn it into a radicalized state of security in which international radical players can come in and they're already looking at Rohingya crisis in a very, very definite way. Besides that, it is becoming a regional crisis because many of the Rohingya groups and subgroups are now getting armed and trying to go back to Rakhine and Myanmar to fight back the existing power in that structure. It is also a security crisis from both transnational and non-traditional security paradigm. It has already become a hot hubs of human trafficking, small arms trafficking, and drug trafficking. So from all three accounts, it is already a major transnational security crisis. It is a major non-traditional security crisis. It has now become a regional security crisis, and unless we are able to curb it there, it can become an international security crisis.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for the fantastic questions. I wanted to take a moment to thank our 5 guests, Yulia Roknifard, Jovan Ratkovic, Leonardo Neves, Marian Vidaodi, and General Muniruzzaman. A round of applause, please, for your great conversation. Thank you all very much. Bangladeshi time, we started 10 minutes late. We finished 10 minutes late, so I think we are good. Please.
Requesting all the speakers to come to the front for a group photo.
Oh, yes, please.